What's going on, my children? It's the George Foreman of Expat Relocation. I'll knock your fucking teeth out and then I'll make you buy my grill.
Lead trainer right next to me is saying it. You may hear him. Down goes Frazier.
So anyways, I'm over here with my big cousin over in China, my big uncle. And we're going to talk about all the happenings for those of you who want to teach her the Englishes to the youths. So my man is over there. He's been in China a long time. We just did an original video that you guys will have to refer to get caught up on all the inside scoop of what's really going on in China. And now we're going to do a follow-up video where we focus a little bit more on the English teaching, because most of you unskilled, unqualified motherfuckers know the only reason you want to go to China is to get that money. So let's talk about that, because I know it's something that everybody's concerned about. Let's talk about the realities of teaching English in China. And now the difference between us and other YouTubers is that my partner is going to tell you the truth. He's going to tell you the reality of what's possible, right? So he's going to kick some mathematics to you, some wisdom. It's not going to be, oh, everything's great and you need to do this and that. It's going to be the reality, right? And what you choose to do with that information is entirely up to you. You're a grown-ass adult. You deserve the right to know what's up. If you're thinking about moving to a country like China, it's important to have up-to-date information from a source that you find reliable. And for those of you that follow my channel, you know I'm a small business. I built my reputation on word of mouth, on just helping people out in Southeast Asia. But I have also lived in China and I have contacts in China. And this is one of my longest friends and contacts for business in China. And the information that he's going to provide you today will give you a clear and concise picture on teaching English in China in 2023. So without further ado, let me introduce you to my partner over in China. And I think we should start off the conversation kind of discussing, is it still worth it to teach in China in 2023?
And you asked me some hard questions, stuff like that. It was worth it to me because I like being here. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. It depends on what your job is, too. I made great money in the States, but you kind of get tired of driving to work every day, right? Same thing. Hard work is stress. You got to work 40, 50 hours, whatever. You can come to probably throughout most of Asia. I don't know what it's like where you're at, but over here in China, it's less stress. Easy money. I'm guessing a lot of you guys that do not have a degree, you're probably not making a killing anyway, so you're going to be making more money here than you would be back in the States. And you don't have to pay taxes. So that's, when you figure in tax-wise, it's probably worth it, I would say. Some things that I just want to mention right now that we need to talk about is your diploma. A few years ago, if you wanted to come here and work and get a Z visa, which is the legal work visa, and you didn't have a diploma, we could get you one. That is not the situation anymore. And I'm not saying if you guys want to go out and try and get a fake visa with or a fake diploma from someone else, I'm not saying we can't do it. I'm saying don't do it at all. All right, this is the reason why. But depending on the situation going on in China, depending on what city you're in, the government will get super strict, or maybe they won't care. You're taking more of a risk on them being pretty strict at the moment. I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. You came into China at the end of everything. And I told you it was the end of everything, but you saw the tip end of it. You get here where there's soldiers marching up and down the streets everywhere.
Yeah. When I was in town, it was crazy. It was there was some very important people in town, and because of that, there was a lot of presence of the state, so to speak.
Okay, so you were in Qingdao, right?
Yes, I was actually. I was in Qingdao.
There's been a few times in Qingdao. I'm about 99% sure this is what was going on with you. Putin came into Qingdao. Xi Jinping was in Qingdao. I think there were 9 leaders. It was a possibility Kim Jong-un came. I don't think he ever showed up, but you get all these communist leaders coming to the country. They'll shut down half the city. They'll build another city somewhere for these guys to come and visit. But yeah, you were kind of at the end of one of those. So soldiers marching, everybody's getting checked. They're coming to your house. You're a foreigner. You can't live here this month. there's always a bunch of stuff like that going on. So that's why I mentioned if you're going to get a fake diploma, that's something that it's possible, but don't do it. I know someone that came here and they had a fake diploma. The school that hired them for ESL didn't know they had a fake diploma, which of course they didn't care. They're going to cover them anyway. They came here, they went through this huge process that we're talking about. No problem. They got their work visa, they got the residence permit. Smooth as butter, right? This is the only time. Actually, I'm still shocked this happened. I had never seen this happen before. Somehow, after they had all their paperwork, the government went back through and checked all of his original documents. When they went back through, they found out that his degree was not real. If you're going to do some kind of fake degree, and if they're going to call the school and question the school, I don't think the school's going to give you any information. I'm still scratching my head trying to figure out how the Communist Party found out this degree was fake. I don't know. For all I know, maybe they went through his WeChat. They've got access to your WeChat. They've got access to a lot of stuff you're using there you might not even realize. But after he was there for 3 months with all the paperwork, they went and found him, told him his degree was fake, and deported him. So that is, I don't know if have I told you about that before?
No, that you have told me stories about some of the foreigners who've ended up in jail, though, and some of the crazy situations around that.
Yes, that's another issue. This is stupid stuff, guys. People online are going to say, "Oh, get this travel visa. Come on over here and run through this." This was around the time. If you remember, a few years ago, there were two guys. Both of their names were Michael. One of them was in. One of them worked for the government. I think he worked at the embassy in Beijing. The other one maybe was a translator or something. One was a Canadian, one was an American. Both of them were arrested for being spies. Do you know this?
No, no. I mean, I think I've heard something about this story, but no. You can please tell us more.
This was in the year, I'm trying to think of an exact time. I think it was 2018, something like that. This happened all because of the Huawei, the
Yes, yes.
he was arrested. Well, then these Michaels were arrested. Something that you didn't see, the Chinese government didn't just pick out two foreigners and arrest them. They went to every single school in, not every city, but in the city I was in, they came to every single school. Lucky for me, I had a few connections. They didn't check my school. The person that owned the school actually managed the government in that area, so I'm kind of good. Everybody else said, "Oh yeah, I have Guanxi. It's okay." If you say you've got Guanxi, you think you've got some kind of good connections. They thought they did, but they didn't. They had student visas. One of them had a travel visa. One of them had a work visa, but their work visa was for a different school. Five of them were caught. The one that had the work visa, but for the other school, the police took him to his apartment. He had a bunch of weed in his apartment. So he said, the first thing I did is I sprinted up the stairs, opened the door, locked it behind me, threw all my weed out the window, and then opened the door and said, "Oh, sorry." And they were a little slow getting up the stairs. They went in there. He was okay because he actually had a work visa. There was just a little mishap. He maybe wasted a day or so. Not in prison or anything like that. Just kind of going through paperwork, the schools, bickering back and forth. Nothing bad on him other than he just threw some weed out the window. The other four, though, they were in a little rougher situation. They actually went to jail. Some of them were in there for 4 days and then they were deported. The worst one, usually for this, working with the wrong visa, I think the worst you can usually get is 30 days. You don't want to be in jail for 30 days in China, man. People will have to bring you food because, I mean, the government's not going to pay for your food. This isn't America. America, you live in jail, you've got to pay it, right? But he was in there for over 30 days because the person that found him the job, he would not tell him who this person was. This guy was kind of a scumbag that was finding people online, helping them get jobs in China, but just trying to make a quick buck, and it didn't help the guy or anything. So all four of them were deported. One of them was working there on a spousal visa, and he had a kid, just had a baby. So I think he was there for maybe 1 or 2 days in jail, which is awful. So he left. He had to reapply for a visa because he had a kid and a wife here. He came right back a month or two later. What he told me was he was sitting there at the school on break. The police came in, they all had body cameras, and walked up to him and said, "Are you a teacher?" And he said, "Yeah." So let me see your visa. He didn't have the visa, so they took him to the jail. His wife came, the school came, all that stuff. He's still here in that city. Don't want to mention his name, but after that, he kind of started doing the same process that I'm doing right now. So he's not going to be in any kind of trouble if that does happen again. I'm saying this because now it's stricter than it was then. That was pre-COVID. Yeah, it's harder to get any of this. So, still possible. Like I said, there's always a way. There's always a risk. Maybe Taiwan does something that makes China mad. China crosses the line too close to Taiwan. The U.S. does something. Some company does. There's a million things that could cause some kind of issue like this, and then they want to search all the foreigners again. And they'll be picky about it too. If it's an issue with Canada, they'll find the Canadians. If there's an issue with the U.S., they're going to go find where the Americans go. Yeah, that's kind of negative sides about coming into the country right now.
And the thing that's funny about this is that you get these ding dongs in the West who talk about how America is the most racist country in the world. They have no fucking clue how much rights minority groups and immigrants and people from other countries are given in the United States compared to a country like China. So it's important for you to remember, if you're going to China, it's the same whether you're going to Vietnam. You have no rights. You are a foreigner. You will always be a foreigner. You are at the whim and mercy of the state. So, the good thing about Vietnam is no one's going to jail for TEFL teaching, at least at this point. And there is workarounds that are still possible, but you will not make the same money as China necessarily. But even from what my partner has been telling me recently, the money in China is still not quite the same as it was in the past. But if you're doing these one-on-ones and you're making 400 RMB an hour, you're going to make much more money in China than you would in Vietnam. So if you do have your documents and you're in a good position with all the paperwork you need, how much do you think someone who's working legitimately can make if they really max out their time right now?
If you have legit paperwork, if you are an actual teacher, and you come here, I would say if you wanted to work full time, you could make 40,000 RMB a month. If not, if you don't want to work a full time job, if you don't have a degree, it's possible you could still make close to that.
Is that with a house?
No, that would be you doing everything on your own. You mentioned this 400 RMB for a one-on-one class. You could do 300 RMB for a one-on-one class, and you can get quite a few students doing that. And then you get 2 or 3 at the same time. They're 900 RMB an hour, right? You could stack up quite a salary, but it's going to take you a while to do that. If you come here, I may know a student or two, depending on what city you want to go to, but I'm not going to be able to stack up, a bunch of students for you. I do know one person that came here. So to those that have lived in Asia, this is going to be a shock. This guy was black, and he was making 50,000 RMB a month. If you've never been to China before, if you are black, if you are Indian, if you are Japanese, they will say you're dirty. If your skin's dark, you're dirty. If you're Japanese, there's all kinds of people tell me I hate Japanese. It's like a level of how they see you. You mentioned racism. There's nothing even close in the U.S. to what is compared to here. But for this guy to be making that much money doing ESL, that's impressive. It's possible for you to do that too, but you're going to actually need the legit paperwork to do it. If not, I would say you can make 20,000 RMB a month. That's definitely without a lot of stress. If you wanted to make 30, you could do that. You're going to have to work. Really fit how much you want to work.
Right.
The jobs are still there. The schools are closed, but the people will still pay money, and they'll pay more than before. But instead of you sitting there for 8 hours making 200 RMB an hour, you're going to have to, go 30 minutes away to get 400 an hour. It kind of balances out to the same.
Okay. But I mean, for most people coming from places like the United States, it's a lot more fun to be in China, in your opinion. Like the society in general is more comfortable for you than where you come from in the States.
Yeah, man, I don't know what I could say, but yeah, I just like living in China. I mean, I came here and I've had all kinds of issues. If there's been a bad thing that's happened, I've probably experienced it at some point, but I'm just happy here, man. It's just a cool place. The U.S., I know some people that just hate living there, and I get it. You know, I don't know, the U.S. It seems so boring. You work, all your money goes to the government, goes to your Social Security. They take all your money out for taxes for everything. I'd rather be here.
Yeah, and to be honest, man, I feel similar here in Southeast Asia. I enjoy the freedom, and even though today I had quite a crazy day, a guy was shot right in front of my apartment building in Cambodia. He was a Vietnamese guy. We don't know too much more than that. He just had a friend in our building, and just broad daylight, somebody drove by and smoked him. So it's been, you would think that that would be like highly traumatic, but I'm from New York, and, I'm so used to fucking gun problems. And I lived in California for many years, obviously before it got as bad as it is now, but like it was always kind of fucked, and there was always a lot of gun violence. So when I see something like that happen here, it's a bit odd that it happened right in front of my building. But at the same time, like I have to put it into perspective. Like Cambodia is not the safest country in the world, but it's definitely still safer than Chicago or Los Angeles or, any of these large urban areas in the United States.
I'm still laughing about the George Foreman knock your teeth out and suck your grill. Been laughing about that for 30 minutes.
Yes, sir. You know how we do.
I also want to mention a lot of people around in China, through most of China, depending on Shenzhen or maybe some other places you won't be able to do this. A lot of people ride like e-bikes around. There's actually more laws on that now. You have to have a helmet.
Whoa.
The first day I came back here, I got stopped by the police 3 times for not
For
wearing.
not having a helmet.
Yes, and it was hilarious because they pull me over. All right, so I've studied Chinese for like 5 years, right? I understand everything they're saying. And so they're like, hey, you don't have a helmet on. And I just stare. I say nothing. And they're like, oh no, can you speak Chinese? And in English, I'm like, hello, can you speak English? And then he turns around. A guy comes over here. He's about to give me a ticket. He's like, oh, it's a foreigner. How do we give a foreigner a ticket? And the guy's, I don't know. I've never given a foreigner a ticket or stopped one before. And then the guy's doing this on, he's like knocking on his head, saying "Tokwe, Tokwe," it means helmet. And I'm just looking at him. I just act like I can't understand a word, And eventually, this make sure he knows he needs a helmet. So 3 of them are coming over there, knocking on their head, saying "Tokwe, Tokwe," and they said, "I don't give him a ticket. I don't know how to do it." So the guy like gets out his phone. This is so stupid. He types in Chinese, "You need a helmet," and shows me in Chinese the Chinese characters. What foreigner can read Chinese characters?
Whoa, that's great.
But I just, helmet, okay. And then I was good to go. But yeah, if you come back here, there are some different laws depending on the city. When I was first here, I'd get a motorcycle and just run around. It's still pretty wild like that. You're supposed to have like some kind of license plate. You don't really need one of those in the city I'm in at the moment. But they are giving you a ticket if you're not wearing a helmet. And it will be a 25 RMB ticket if they can figure out how to get a foreigner a ticket.
That's funny. So in Vietnam, it's like kind of a known thing. I mean, really, in this whole region, it's kind of a known thing that the cops just pull you over and extract a certain amount of money out of you and just let you go. They literally set up on streets and just charge everybody money for a few hours, pack up, and then just go somewhere else. So, and the thing is when you've lived in the country a long time, you know how much you're supposed to pay. It's the people who don't know that, unfortunately, sometimes they say crazy prices to them, Unfortunately, though, since the pandemic, things like overstaying your visa in Vietnam or any kind of legal issues have become astronomically expensive and complicated. Before the pandemic, if you overstayed your visa, and I don't mean a minor overstay, something that could be settled easily. I mean like serious overstays, and you ended up blacklisted, the cost to get off a blacklist would maybe have only been about $1,000. And, they would try to get 2, they would negotiate down to 1. Nowadays, you're not going to see any kind of low price like that. They are asking for absurd amounts of money. And the way they handle it in Vietnam is they just don't let you leave. You're not going to go to jail, but you're never going to leave Vietnam. And we had a client who had a problem with a business partner and was in a position where he had to contact us to help him get out because, he had some family member who was, I guess, dying or something, and he needed to be able to go to see them. And they were just going to say, you can't leave. So I would say don't fuck around in Southeast Asia right now. Would you say that's probably the same in China? It's better to try to do things legitimately if that's possible.
If it's possible, yes. If I think I mentioned in our last video, not everything that I've done is legit. There are still some workarounds. If the government tries to check up on me, even though what I've done is it's not legit, if they give somebody a call, I've got a whole group of people waiting there to tell them that this is really what I'm doing. Come to back me up in the future, which is, I mean, that's really saying something for someone to be able to call, you know, call your school or whatever, and make sure it's a legit school. Fake website. When I say fake website, I'm talking like fake website for, let's say, a school you went to, or just random things like that. I've done a few things. It's almost easier just to pay money and do that, other than try and go through the process of some of this. I would say China's worth it. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, this is still a good place to be. This is still worthwhile, even with kind of some of the issues and the craziness that's going on. For someone who is young and entrepreneurial, this might be a place for them to raise some capital.
Yeah, sure. Also, if you are a student, you can legally work with a student visa. Do not let people tell you that you can come with a regular student visa. There's extra steps you have to take in order to work with a student visa. You don't just come with a student visa and work. You've got to go through another process for that. But yeah, if you're going to come here, if we're going to kind of work with you and get you over here, we're not going to send you over here with nothing. We're going to have a job waiting for you when you get here, because it's a process. The school needs to know you're coming. The school needs to go through the paperwork to get you here. So if there's an issue with you, the school's got an issue too.
So, guys, I think it's important that we also discuss that there is going to be a big distinction between nationalities. Like, for example, I'm sure this is the same in China because it was when I was there. And universally, this is true in Vietnam. If you have a passport from like the Middle East or an African country or Bangladesh, they're not really too interested in talking to you. It will be really difficult for you to even get the visa. I don't know if that's true in China. Maybe you could clarify, but for Vietnam, it's extremely hard for them to even get a tourist visa, let alone to get into the country and get employment. And a lot of them get taken advantage of, end up in human trafficking situations. The Vietnamese do not have a high opinion of Africa, the Middle East, these places. They've had a lot of issues with people coming from places like South Africa and then overstaying their visas for long periods of time. And, unfortunately, there is quite a few circumstances of people from other sub-Saharan African countries with big drug busts and things like this in Vietnam. So the general attitude of the government is not favorable to those nationalities. Now, if you have a passport from the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, one of the rich countries, it's a lot easier for you to get employment, visas, you get generally favorable treatment. In China, how is that now? Is it the same when it comes to employment and things like that, that obviously you want to have a passport from a strong country? Or
if it comes to employment, yes. But if you're white, you can probably get a job just because you're white. Not quite like before. One thing I will say, though, is if you want to come in here and maybe you are not from the US or Canada, you're not from Britain, you're not from an English-speaking country, this is one thing that I think I can probably do that a lot of people can't, is I can still get you in here with a visa. Not just a travel visa, I can actually get you something that's pretty good. I mean, we'll get you a good 6 months. If you're from Turkey, that's one that I've worked with before. And if you're from Turkey, I'm not going to be able to help you much with that. But if you're anywhere in Europe, I think you're pretty much good to go. I've got some friends that's kind of doing the same thing, and they've come here from Europe. I know one from France, doing really good. I mean, not a native English speaker, but speaks good English, making almost 40,000 RMB a month. That's pretty good. I mean, compared to the price in the US or France, which is where they're from. Out taxes, that's a big thing, guys. Whenever you're looking at some of these salaries, let's say if you're in the US, take off 30% of your salary. That's what you're getting after taxes. In China, this money you're getting is just straight up cash. You're good to go. One of the issues that's getting a little harder is getting money out of the country.
okay, talk about that.
For me, I have a legit work visa. My salary, that amount, I can get that amount out of the country. If I want to work and do all these side jobs and make, closer to 40K a month, I've got all this extra money sitting here. It's going to look a little fishy me trying to get out. What I've done, like we mentioned before, I've got quite a few Chinese friends. Each Chinese person is able to send a certain amount of money out per month. I think the rules have changed in the past few months. I think they can do this 4 times per year. They can send a certain amount out without having to pay any big fines. There's Chinese people that's going to fly to the U.S. and buy a house. These rich people, they're going to pay a higher percentage. What I've done is the local people I know here, the people that I actually trust, I can give them money. They can send it straight to my U.S. bank account. You may have to do it. I sent $500,000 back. I had to have 4 different friends do this, but we all got it back to me in about 2 weeks. It's a pretty good amount to show up in your bank account in the U.S. Canada, it's all the same. It is a little tricky. You're going to have to know Chinese people to do that.
And that's where we come in. We're going to be able to help you guys with those local connections that otherwise would be very difficult for you to get yourself. And if you're working with us, you're going to be getting a fully comprehensive relocation package where we help you find employment and we help you solve all the problems along the way. Like I mentioned before, if you're coming from any country where, let's just be honest, you're white, it's going to be a lot easier for you. If you're coming from a country where you're not white, it's going to be a lot harder. But what about people who are not white that come from places like UK or Europe? Is it, you have that one situation you told us about where the black guy is doing quite well. Is it pretty much universally okay to be a different race if you're from like the States or from UK or Australia?
I think it's possible if you got, it just depends. I don't want to like rate people.
No, but this is
You're going to
reality.
get a rating in China. You're going to be an ABC class resident. They're going to rate you if you are A, which is very few people. You're going to need to be some kind of, that's going to be like a government official or some, you graduated from Harvard, you're making $500,000 US a year, something like that. You'll be an A-class student. Most people are B. I'm considered a B-class student. If you are a C-class student, or I keep saying student, if you are a C-class foreigner, you might not come from a native country. Those are still possible. It's a little trickier to get, and your salary is going to be lower. But if you come from a country like you mentioned, that you're American, UK, Britain, somewhere in Europe, and you're not white, if you're close to white, let's say if you're from Mexico, they're still going to see you as a white person. If you're black, it's going to be a little harder, and your salary will be lower. And that's just, it's terrible that it's like that. I even mentioned, I had a good black friend here, and he didn't speak the language. He wasn't here that long. But listening to what people would say to him when he was like walking down the street, it's not like they were purposely insulting him, but the things they said, it just made me mad, It's like, oh, watch out, there's a dirty guy coming. It wasn't like constantly, but sometimes you would hear him say something like that from kind of behind your back. I don't know. That just kind of annoys me, I guess.
Me too. I screenshotted every time that a recruiter has said something off the wall racist to me. And I have like a whole folder on my phone of all these crazy things that have been said to me over the years by different ESL recruiters in Vietnam. And then I actually have people who have gotten mad at me when I made videos trying to warn people about racism in Southeast Asia. And they got mad at me for trying to say that that actually happens when the things that people do and say about, minority groups or people that are different from them, you would never be able to do or say in a Western country.
No way.
Just completely alien in our society. Whereas here, like, racism, nationalism, national identity, purity of race, all these things are highly important, to society. And I think people in the West really don't quite understand that about Asia. And I think if they're coming out here with like woke values, they're going to have a very hard time if they actually start to understand how the societies work here.
Yeah,
There's still
Slavery in some of these countries here, man.
I will mention, whenever I came here and found an apartment, my friend that actually found this place for me, he called the owner and he said, "Hey, do you mind if there is a foreigner live in your apartment?" And they said, "Yeah, that's fine. That's great. No problem." He said, "All right." Well, we kind of bargained with price. They gave me even better deal than usual. So they hung up the phone. 30 seconds later, the phone rings. He answers, and I can hear the conversation going on through the phone. She said, "I'm sorry, I forgot to ask. Is he white or black?" Oh,
Of
he's
course.
white. And they said, "Okay, good. That's okay then." And then hung up the phone. Yeah, that's how
Unbelievable.
it is, man. Well, the first time I was in China, this is what, 2010, 2011? I forget which year. This was in Shanghai. I was doing ESL. I hadn't graduated from college yet, so I wasn't working legally. I wasn't I didn't have any legit paperwork. I think I was there at the time. They had 30-day travel visas. It was a different setup at that time. I go in there for an interview. There's me. There's another Black American, and he was an actual teacher at a university in the U.S. He had his master's degree. I was 20 years old. I didn't have anything. They picked me. I got the job over him. And I was like, why? Why did you pick me over this
Of
guy? This
course.
guy's like, he's got all the master's degree. I've got nothing. Oh, we don't want black guys here.
And I've seen it with during the pandemic where there'd be two set different prices for white foreigner, black foreigner. I see it right now with the issuance of how the visas work and how work permits are issued and things like this. Now, obviously, if you're from the U.S., in Vietnam, the U.S. gets a lot of respect. So it's not the worst nationality to have. I know most people in America who live in a box probably think that Vietnam and America don't like each other, but the Vietnam War was like almost, what is it? I would say 40 plus years now. And they are not really big fans of China, and they have China right at their border. So their attitude towards Western countries is favorable. But even with that, I've still seen things become more strict. Racism is just as alive and well. I've seen much more scrutiny around immigration, much more problems with bureaucracy. There's currently some purges that are happening. People in the government are being, arrested and, charged with all kinds of crazy crimes. So you do need to be aware of the situation on the ground if you're thinking about coming to a country. And it's one of the reasons why it's taking them forever to even finish my work permit. I own a company in Vietnam, and we're going through the whole process legally. So it can be quite time consuming because, now you can't fuck around anymore. There's no more shell companies or shady stuff. I mean, there is, but kind of like my partner here warned you about China, it's just very dangerous and it's not worth it. And it's better to do things legally, even if it takes fucking forever. There's all kinds of crazy shit happening in the bureaucracy. So just because things are fucked up in China, don't think that everything's like a picnic down here in Southeast Asia. Now, Cambodia is a great spot right now, guys. Very easy, very open. They tend to also hire non-white people at a higher rate because they can't get many people from rich countries that are native-speaking countries to always stay here. There's a lot of people in the market. The salaries are not so high. Phnom Penh can be a somewhat expensive city depending on how you choose to live, even though in my opinion, I think it's still very cheap. Now, in China, do you think that things are becoming progressively more strict, or do you think that they've relaxed since COVID and they're relaxing more? What's the vibe you're getting? Because I can tell you from Vietnam, it seems like it's becoming a very strict situation. Now, China, I don't know. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, the reason they're getting strict with a lot of the ESL teaching is not because of COVID. It's because the one child policy driving everything into the ground. It's almost like the government wants their students or the kids to learn less. Before some of these current laws, kids would be studying all day. They're studying for a Gaokao, the test to go into the university. Now they don't study so much anymore. That's kind of why some of these schools have disappeared. The parents might still want to be learning. It's like this for a lot of things. I think even for piano, I mentioned there's like a budget that the school has that they can only charge them so much money. It's not just English. It's, you can't come over here and you're a science teacher. If you're a Chinese science teacher, you might have gotten cut off from tutoring science at a different school somewhere on weekends. There's a lot of really weird things happening in China right now. It seems like it's kind of leveled out a little bit. I don't see any more changes going on right now. The companies that were going to close. Wall Street English is gone. Everyone knew about that. I think it's pretty stable at the moment. I couldn't see it. I don't think it's going to get any worse. Like I mentioned earlier, I think in the next couple of years, China's economy is going to do better. It's going to be recovering. After a few years, I'm not sure. I don't think China is going to be successful in the long run. In the next 10 or 20 years from now, I think it's going to be a struggling country. But there's still some good in it at the moment.
So guys, we wanted to just give you the real perspective on teaching English in China at the moment and the reality in Southeast Asia, East Asia, anywhere that we talk about, we try to speak about frankly and honestly. I still think even with Vietnam becoming a much more strict country and all the anti-corruption, craziness that's happening right now, I still think it's a worthwhile country to go to. I still think if you have your documents, it makes things a lot better. And I would still recommend to anybody to go there and to try to, make a life for yourself, because I did very well for myself and it was very good to me. And my partner here, he had a very similar experience in China. He still thinks it's worthwhile. He still thinks it's worth coming to. But again, it's just the game is changing and you need to be able to evolve and adapt. And I hope these videos are helpful to anyone who's seriously thinking about coming to this part of the world. If you guys have any questions about living, working, or doing business in Southeast Asia or in China or in Northern Asia, we have contacts for employment in Korea. We have contacts for employment in Central Asia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Mongolia. We have contacts for employment in Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand. So if you want to do the teacher thing, get at us, reach us about the consulting service. Obviously, our China service is going to be priced very differently than some of our other services because the process in which to get you into the country is far more complicated. Please feel free to inquire on any of the contact information in the description below. Check us out on TikTok. Check us out on Instagram. We're all over. We're on every social media platform. We're on Rumble. If you guys are thinking of coming out here, please get a hold of us. If you enjoyed the content, please smash the like button, share the videos. This is going to be a whole series, and we're going to bring you guys a whole lot more content on these topics. We're just starting to kind of warm up and making a little bit of content for you guys. And we're going to try to refine it and improve it over time. And hopefully you guys enjoy that. Thank you for coming out. I want to just leave it to my partner to leave some final thoughts if there's any other things you'd like to say.
All right. Well, if you want to come to China, I've got so much to say. I could probably talk about this for weeks. If you want to be here, you can get here. It doesn't matter. Even if you're black, we can get you in. Yeah, the border's open for you. What I'm doing right now is not legal. Being an agent's illegal in China. Everything's illegal, but yeah, you know the right person, everything can happen.
All right, guys, thank you for watching. Smash the like button, subscribe, and share. Remember, it's who you know, not what you know. Remember, I am your biological father. Remember, sit on my knee, little nephew. Remember to eat your vegetables. Remember to brush your teeth. Remember to stay in school, and that you're probably living a shitty, whack life and have no friends and working in McDonald's when you could actually be teaching children the Englishes. Like me, like I was a qualified teacher of the Englishes to the youths in Saigon. And I lived in China, and that's actually how my partner and I met. He's a great guy. I've known him for a very long time. I think very highly of him. Please reach us on the Facebook fan page if you have any questions, and smash the like button and, help us fight the algorithm.